All right, what's up guys? So today on To The Point, we're here with Maddie. He runs a company called Empathy Office, and he's gonna be talking to us about how creatives should interface with agencies. How should creatives work with agencies?
Man, I'll start by saying if creatives spent half the energy that they did doing the work, that they spent selling us that they could do the work, it would make all the difference in the world. So inside of our office, across all offices, we have a phrase that says great work leads to more work. And with every client that we've had, we just try to get in and prove unbelievable value and deliver what we said we would do. And if the creatives that we brought in as freelancers or as studios or units did the same thing that we did with our clients to us after they, sold us, they would have more work than they knew what to do. So it's been a lot of like, they say one thing or promise one thing, a level of communication or a level of excellence or a level of grit or whatever you're selling, whatever you're enthusiastically leading with, that should be the hallmark of the project.
For sure.
And a lot of times it's not.
What do you see as the biggest challenge when working with creatives?
It's just a level of integrity. Anybody can execute. You can find bloggers and influencers that can execute. You send them product, you give them a 5D and some presets, and they're now a full-time photographer. They're making 300 grand a year just working with brands. So anybody can learn the technicality, but really you can't replace the integrity of just doing the work. Being on time. Communication is the most important thing. We're all human, right? We're a human agency. We work at the intersection of brand and culture and humanity. And so the greatest tool we have in working with each other is communication. And when that breaks down, like if something's going wrong, tell me. If something's going right, tell me. If you're gonna deliver early, tell me why. Right? If you told me it was gonna take 10 days, but you're done in 5, communicate that to me. Explain why you got done early, because that can also cheapen the work.
Yeah.
If somebody delivers too early, you're like, they didn't fucking work hard enough. And for us, like, our whole thing is like, do what you say you're gonna do, show up in the way that you're gonna say that you will, and if things change, just be real with us and explain it, make it human, show us. People love seeing chinks in the armor. My mentor used to say that. And so when creatives are not perfect, by very nature being creative, you get whims or you wanna go like, I don't even mind if people are late because they're going the extra mile. If they communicate to me why they're gonna be late, why it's important, and set me up for success with my clients. And to be honest, a lot of times we build an extra buffer. Yeah. So if they just would have been honest with me, they still would have delivered the project ahead of time.
Yeah.
But they didn't. And so then if I have to start chasing you, that's when I'm not gonna work with you again.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I don't know if you remember the first project you ever sold. Do you remember how excited you were to deliver that for the client?
Oh, yeah.
You were really communicative and you were really thorough and you were really like, people lose that, man. They get a few, we call them tiny wins, but they get a few tiny wins under their belt and they get lax. Yeah. And I guarantee you what won you your first project, obviously you get smarter and you get better and you get, more efficient with the work.
Yeah.
But if you have that same spirit of like, I as my own personal brand, I'm a startup and every client is my most important client, just magic starts to happen. And it's hard to, when you start to lose that, when you get lax with your communication or lax with, the way that you're moving through life, that's when things go bad. And that's when projects fall apart. Yeah. And that's when you start putting us in a bad position.
Yeah.
A trick that I will tell you that every agency or consultancy has is typically they can do the exact thing that they've got you doing in case you fuck up. They're there to go in and fix it.
Yeah.
Because no agency is going to sell something, like that they can't do, but they're bringing you in because they trust you to do it and they're too busy to do it themselves.
Yeah. Yep.
Or they need your expertise,
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
So like the last thing you want to do is have an agency that's paying you that has to go back and clean up your mess.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. And it's honestly, it's a lack of communication, it's a lack of integrity, and it's a lack of just, doing what you say you're gonna do.
Yeah.
So.
When you say a mess, what is a mess?
A mess is when the brief is clear and the deliverable is clear and the execution is clear. And because you got distracted or lazy or complacent or whatever the case may be, you just didn't deliver what you sold.
Yeah.
So like if you meet with me and I need 20 images and you tell me you're going to do this, this, and this, and I'll have them this day, I'm banking on that. So is my client. And anything that you've sold me, I've then sold to somebody else.
Yeah.
And so if you put me in a position where I have to do it myself, it's not a win.
Yeah, that's not a win at all.
But it happens a lot. Like, you know, we sell something and then we go find a creative that can execute on it because A, we're busy, or B, it's too small for us to, you know, put a lot of energy and effort behind, and or C, it's just it's complicated.
Yeah.
Scheduling wise, we believe that somebody can execute on that, and when they don't, it puts us in a weird spot. And the last thing that we want to do is, we're only as good as our last project and client.
Yeah.
So the last thing we want to do is leave a client stuck, or not deliver to them, or miss a deadline. Happens a lot more on the web side of things, but it really does happen on the video and web, and edit gets stuck too long in edit, or we're promised a rough cut on a Wednesday and we're chasing somebody on a Friday saying, when are we going to get a first look at this? You know, it's due Monday. Like, I should never have to remind you when something's due.
For sure.
So especially with, dude, we have a lot of creatives, they set their own schedule. So we ask them, like, when is this going to be done? And they'll say Friday. And so then we will build in a buffer. So we'll tell the client Tuesday. And then on a Monday, we're chasing them saying, dude, like, why are you failing? You set up the schedule. Not me. You did this. But it happens.
So how do you, as an agency, define great work from a creative, from a photographer?
Oh, man. From a photographer, we do a lot of archetype work. So we assign, Carl Jung creates 12 archetypes. There's 60 total, but they fall in 12 buckets. The magician, the jester, the hero, the sage, and all of them have a narrative arc, right? And so for us, like, we are aligning a brand strategy with an outcome. We're looking at data, but we're also looking at feelings. And so really, like, for us, we give the creative that we choose a lot of creative freedom to execute on that. We can't break brand standards. So we work with a lot of big brands, and they'll send us a 200-page brand deck. What's interesting is the majority of the big brands have like 4 pages set aside for photography and video.
Nice.
Make it warm and inviting. Like, what does that mean? What is warm and inviting? Totally. And so we give our creatives a ton of freedom. But for us, it is, great work requires a couple things: communication, urgency, probity. Like, we need the truth. So like, if you're trying to execute on something that you don't possess the ability to do, let us know. We have resources, we can help you. Alchemy, we have to like the creative. Like, I don't care how talented you are. If I don't like you, I'm not gonna make room for you at my table. And then profitability. We have to make margin, and you have to make margin. So like, I don't want you to ever undersell me. If you need $1,200 to make an image, don't tell me you can do it for $600 and then bitch at me because you didn't have the budget to execute what you wanted. Because we give our creatives a lot of control. You know?
Sounds like it.
And and there's several sales in a process. There's selling the client that you can do the work. There's selling the client that the work that you want to do is the right work. There's selling the client that you're doing the work, and then there's selling the client that the work you did for them was the right work. It's so interesting. So there's 4 sales. Most people believe there's 1 sale. I just got to convince you that I can do the work. No, man, you got to sell that creative vision all the way through. Great work for us just delivers on the promise.
I want to talk more about that last piece, telling a client why the work that you did for them was right. I feel like a lot of kind of people that are amateur, they lose that piece. 100%. They do the work, they go out and shoot, they get their stuff done, and then they just send a Dropbox link.
We call that throwing it over the fence. Just because you checked a box doesn't mean you made the person feel good doing it. So you can execute on the creative brief, you can execute on the budget, you can execute on the timeline, you can get every detail right. But if the client doesn't understand why you made the choices that you made, then you failed. We literally, because we'll go into rooms and we'll meet with CEOs and we'll pitch design. So let's say we're doing a new logo, and we'll tell them, they see the design, they go, I don't like navy. And you're like, why? And they're like, my wife went to Michigan, and in our house we're a house divided. I'm an Alabama guy, and I hate Michigan. It's like, cool, you're putting the fate of a $5 billion company on the premise that you don't like Navy because it's the color of a university that your wife went to. Whereas we'll get into, and then we're like, hold on, buddy. You brought us in because we're experts. We'll tell you using color psychology and human behavior why navy's the right. And then we start to massage it, and they'll like understand it. And you see their walls go down, and then it doesn't matter that their wife went to Michigan.
Yeah.
The same thing happens with visuals, film, photo. You know, like when we do film, the client will battle you on the score, on the music, on the track, on the sound design. If they don't understand why you're doing what you're doing based on humanity.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so for us, like, if you can't explain why the decisions that you made are the ones you made, you just created art, and that belongs in a gallery, not in a client brief. It's the difference between identity work and graphic design. I love graphic design.
Yeah.
But graphic design a lot of time is not mired in strategy. It doesn't have that root and that foundation. And if you can't explain why you did what you did and saying, oh, I just liked it, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Especially, it does when you're a freelancer and you're shooting like 3 headshots for a realtor. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like Wanda, who's selling a house in Pacific Palisades, says, oh, I really like the way that looks. And you're like, yeah. When you start working with big brands, they're using data and insights. They're having you move models' faces 3 inches to the right because they have information saying that on these certain Instagram posters, when her face is at this angle, it converts at a 1.9% higher.
Yeah.
Right. When you start getting into data, you have to explain what you did, and it can't just be. So that really separates an amateur from just a professional. Like, you know, we'll work on campaigns for major brands, and it's a lot of data. And if you want to do something off the sheet, you have to really fight for why it's important and why it matters, because you're going against data.
Yeah. When you're working with creatives, a lot of times there's data of stuff that you know that has worked before, and then there's also just your creative intuition. Do you want to speak a little bit to the balance?
Yeah, so literally when you land on our About page, it says where head meets heart. We work with nerd herds, that's what they're lovingly called. Literally, we have data scientists and deep consumer insights people on our staff that all they do is study data. But we don't believe data tells the whole story. Just because something has worked in the past doesn't mean it's going to work in the future. And there is this like high level of psychology and intuition. You can only go into a room with CEOs and a board and go off intuition after you've proved yourself. Trust. If somebody doesn't trust you, when you go against the data, that's like looking at a car that's black and trying to convince somebody that it's white.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect
But if you have slowly, tiny wins, if you've slowly earned trust with the person, that when you want to go off playbook and you want to go off data and you want to go a little rogue, they will buy in to your message if they trust you.
Yeah.
And trust is the weirdest thing. Like I had a dinner party a couple weeks ago, got in a massive fight with a guy because he believes trust is everything. And I was like, dude, anything that you can spend 15 years building that can be eroded in 15 seconds, I don't know if I believe in that.
Yeah.
I just was reading some psychology work, and it was talking about truth is based on what seat you're sitting in. It's your perspective. It's, you know, like absolute truth, sure, but like personal truth, moral truth, like brand truth is only relevant to what seat you're in. And so like this trust thing, like it's everything. You burn trust, good luck getting it back, especially with an agency. Every client that we've ever had has gotten burned in some way, and they're hedging their bets.
Yeah.
They want to know that you're not going to fuck them.
Yeah.
And they want to know that at the end of the day that what you've promised that you're going to deliver. And people expect delight now. Yeah. Every agency's hungry for work. Yeah. Everyone's willing to deliver. Clients are looking for the ones that will go a little bit above and beyond. Yeah. And what that is that magic sauce of the data says this, but I also know this. So it's delivering on the data, but it's adding that extra. You know, and a lot of people think that they have to be at odds. And I think like the data informs our work. The intuition carries it. And it's that, you know, it's that storytelling. And I don't mean like the watered down bullshit storytelling. I mean that authentic, and I hate the word authentic because we've just ruined it. Because everyone who's hawking creative, you know, Korean face mask on Instagram is authentic to their best self, their highest self. But I mean truly, like when you get in these boardrooms and a CEO's looking at you and he's saying, you're gonna dictate how we spend $400 million this year.
Yeah.
Why should we trust you when we know these things? You gotta have trust there, and they gotta believe you, and the consumer has to.
Yeah.
And consumers hate being sold.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like you meet anybody who's bought a Tesla and they can't wait to drive you down the road, take their hands off the wheel, and show you that the thing can drive itself. I literally had a guy that bought a Dyson. He ground up like a pound of coffee in his grinder and dumps it on the floor to show me how powerful his Dyson was. Yeah. You find people that fall in love with actual brands and they can't wait to tell you about them. Yeah. You have to make people feel that in the work that you do. Yeah. And if you don't feel that way, you probably shouldn't be doing that work. You're chasing money and not truth. Yeah. You know, like if you don't believe in what you're shooting, how can you shoot it yourself? Yeah. You know, if you're just checking a box to get a check, like it's not a good way, man. Yeah. And I think it's why a lot of people are just like scrolling through Instagram, seeing stuff that they like, and then going and trying to recreate that. Because they don't actually believe in what they're producing, and they're literally chasing a check.
Yes. So how do you think you break out of that mold of just repeating what you've already seen? What do you think is the step to break that mold?
I think that's highly personable for every creative. Yeah. For some people, like they literally delete their Instagram for a month and they just go shoot anything they want, and they end up coming back and they're like, oh, this is the most innovative work I've ever done. For some people, it's launching their own brands so that they are their own client, so they can be their best client and do their best work. I've seen it work over and over again. The best work that I do is for myself. Unequivocally.
That's beautiful.
I mean, truly.
Yeah.
You know, like, and that's the thing, like you get on agency websites and you're looking at case studies, you have no idea the constraints that client put on that creative. And so like, I don't blame a lot of creatives for shitty work. I blame clients. Yeah. Paul Rand said the client's not always right, but the client's always paying. And at the end of the day, if somebody's writing you a check, you got to deliver on not only what you promise, but what they expect. Yeah. My personal opinion would be go launch your own thing. Yeah. Whether that's an Instagram channel that you're putting out work that you love, or maybe you play into TikTok, or maybe you launch if you're a photographer, a print business where you shoot things that you think are interesting. The thing that I look for in the creatives that I hire is, do they have a point of view and are they willing to communicate it? If you don't have a point of view, why should I hire you? You're literally, that takes you from being an expert to pushing a button. Yeah. And dude, I can hire a lot of professional button pushers. Yeah. So, but I think it really separates the good from the great. And I think like your point of view, like if you're not willing to put your foot down and say, this is what I believe, then why should I trust you? Yeah. And then number two, styles and people, they evolve as they grow. So like, I don't believe that anybody's locked into a style unless they choose to be. Yeah. You know, like we're creatives. Yeah. Another thing that's interesting is we just got in this massive conversation last week at our office around all these creative agencies pitch the exact same way, and we're claiming to be creatives, and yet we can't get creative in how we pitch. Yeah. So every RFP looks the same, every pitch looks the same, every case study deck looks the same. Yeah. Like, dude, I look at photographers' portfolios every week. Yeah. They all look the same. Somebody sees something cool and they go create their own version of it on a cheap scale, or like they'll do their spec Sonos ad in their home and it looks just like the stuff that's on I don't want to see that you can do the same kind of photo that's on Sonos website. That's not interesting to me. For sure. I want to see that you did something wild. For sure. Because you wanted to and you love the brand. There's two questions we ask every person that we hire. Describe yellow to a blind person. It's really hard. Yeah. Because they go to explain it with color. Yeah. Yeah. And so it shows us that they have a hard time thinking around the problem. And so we put that certain creative in a box because we're like, okay, we have to give them really specific instructions on what we're trying to do here. Yeah. And the second is we ask people who their dream clients are, and then the follow-up question to that is, why aren't you doing work for them? Because like if you have a dream client and you're not willing to go chase them, then like, what are you doing?
Why are you doing it?
Why are you doing it? You know? So it's really interesting. Like those two questions tell us a lot about the person that we're getting ready to work with. Yeah.
So do you want to tell me a little bit about you and about what you're building?
Yeah, so I am a creative entrepreneur. I'm obsessed with solving problems. My background is in economics and fine art and business technology. So it's this weird balance of, do the numbers make sense? Does it make sense to people? And is it beautiful? I have been doing this for 13 years, have recently morphed my last agency into a new version of it called Empathy Office. We are a positive psychology consultancy that basically works at the intersection of people, psychology, and brands. So we work inside of organizing clients into archetypes, and then making sure their brand strategy is right, and then helping them find and market to their best customers. So we're working with BMW, we've worked with Cartier, United Airlines, we've worked with Blackstone. So we do everything from real estate. We've done 19 CBD brands in the last year, just trying to help people find some healthy using the power of the plant. We work with startups all the way up to, we've designed a website for Walmart Canada. It's the largest company in the world. We do some of their e-commerce strategy. So for us, it's about finding that overlap between where does the creative align with the story and align with the customer. So everything for us is about commerce, but it has to be true. And it has to be relevant. And so for us, that comes through customer obsession, pragmatism, innovation, and aspiration. And those are the 4 buckets that we play in.
All right, thanks, Maddie, so much for all of the insight. You're just like dropping wisdom bombs left and right.
Dude, I'm just thinking out loud. Like I tell people, I write on my Instagram every day, and it's just, I'm learning out loud. And like, if it works for people, great. If it doesn't work for people, that's okay. They're not my people. So, man, it's been fun. It's been fun.
It's beautiful. I love it. Dude, stay tuned next week for another episode of AOV to the Point.